and right before I started recording, I heard her piping. So I'm pretty confident she's in here. Look at them sticking up their rears to spread and fan one of the many pheromones. Oh, there she is. Perfect. Let's see, right here. Got her. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to April. So here it is, Thursday, April 3rd, right at 4:30. Temperature's about 82 degrees. Humidity is right around 70%. And why am I coming out here suited up on a Thursday? That's because I am going to be presenting some information to the Thompson Early Learning Center tomorrow. So I'm out here in the yard to go through a few of the single deeps, which was some of the splits that I made last week or swarms that I caught. So that should be fairly simple to find 4 or 5 frames for the bottom part of the observation hive, and then the 1 frame in the top. Hopefully I can find the queen, because that's where that one goes. That's always a hit with the kids, especially with the marked queen. It makes it obviously relatively easy to find her. So that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna do that first, and then if I have some time and if the bees are cooperating, like they're not trying to sting me through my veil, right? Because they have been kind of agitated lately with some of the colonies that have been known to be queenless. If I have the time towards the end, if this doesn't take too long to get a colony or bees into the observation hive, I'm gonna go through a few of them just to see if they have become queen right in almost the last week, the last 5 days or so. So stay tuned. And I almost forgot, it's almost like a tradition. Before I get started, let's walk around to the front so I can show you the entrances. And if you didn't hear the buzzing, it sounds like I am already being greeted by a bit of a welcoming committee. So if my memory serves me right, 12 was in the tree, right? 12 was probably the old number 9. These are all the same. 11 was the 5 frame that I moved into the 10 frame box. 6, let's see, 6 was number, I don't remember the number, but 6 was number 7s, yeah. That practice swarm that I ended up catching the queen and they came back. The rest are the same. Number 4, don't remember. But these are the ones I'm really curious about. These were some of the splits that I made and indicated by the marker in the middle, like I explained in the end of the last month's video. All right, so I already have an indication of how today's time is going to go with the bees out here greeting me, which is also a sign that they are probably queenless. And this is interesting. So I left the shallow 5 frame nuke out here for the bees to rob it out. And it looks like, I don't have a trail camera over here, but some critter got to it. If it was our friendly neighborhood black bear, I imagine those frames would be completely destroyed, but it looks like there is a frame missing as well. So honestly, who knows at this point? That's just something else to look into here in a second. Oh, found it. There it is. That's probably a raccoon or a possum or something. But yeah, anyway, seems like the bees are still agitated, so I don't know. Hopefully this time's not as bad as I think it might be. All right, enough me yapping. Let me get everything set up. I'm gonna go down to, well, either one of these splits, or I might just go down to number 12, the swarm from the tree that I know has a marked queen. And as I'm finishing up, I might check on those splits just to see how they're doing. All right, again, down here at number 12. This was the hive that came out of the tree, which I believe was number 9. And that's kind of odd. I haven't used any of the water I gave them because it's all clogged up with dead bees. Let me clean that up first before I go looking for a few nice frames. All right, success. Managed to find the queen, which was pretty easy. Got her caged, put her up here in the top portion. There's a queen excluder between the boxes. The bottom box has 5 frames. a few nice food frames since they're going to be cooped up for maybe just over 12 hours, 12 to 15 hours. And then this bottom window, I found a nice brood frame that has larva, capped brood, open brood in all stages, and I put that facing the outside so I can explain that to the staff and the students tomorrow. I haven't done this I didn't do it last year, so it's been the better part of almost 2 years. And tomorrow's the Thompson Early Learning Center, and then next Friday I'll be over at Milestones. So pretty cool. I'll just use the same colony, number 12, right? I'll just use them for both times and then leave them alone for the season. All right, hey, here it is the following day. So it's Friday, April 4th, right around 1 o'clock, 83 degrees and 70% humidity. And the school visit went very well. Quite a few groups of kids, maybe 50 in total, but they really seemed to enjoy the presentation about the bees. And of course, the hit is always the observation hive. And that's exactly why I'm out here today, to get hive number 12 back into their box with probably a decent amount of field bees that returned to the hive after I removed about 6 frames for the observation hive. And as you can see, I have a few very friendly bees greeting me, which is why I have my veil on. That is because I have a few hives currently in the requeening process. That's usually why they're agitated and meet me halfway down the trail here. So I'm just gonna get my gloves on, get the smoker lit, get number 12 back into the parent colony. I'll show you a few clips of that, and I might do a few other things, so stay tuned. And since I need to walk around and turn the fence off, let's take a traditional first look or front look at the hives. So number 12 is probably wondering what's going on. I'll get them put back together here soon. But again, not that you can gauge much, but just looking at the entrance activity, seem to be doing pretty well. It's definitely that time of year. These are the ones I'm really curious about, because I made the splits from, I think 7 went down there, 5 or 15, or actually yeah, 15, because it's a single deep and a medium, not 5 with the double mediums. But these are the 2 I'm really keeping an eye on, and it's just a matter of the populations rebuilding and building a foraging force. Let's go check the swarm traps real quick. No real activity. It's kind of strange. But yeah, the thing I was alluding to earlier is the tulip poplars are about to bloom, and they produce a nice nectar source. So what I'm thinking about doing today for the majority of the hives is adding a queen excluder. Probably shaking the bees down into the bottom box and then adding an excluder, check on them maybe in a few days to make sure I got the queen down in the bottom box, and then just enjoy watching the bees bring in nectar and cure it to honey. And hopefully, with overwintering as many as I did this year, which I believe is about maybe a 50% increase from the previous year, maybe actually get a decent honey crop. All right. So the queen's in the top portion. I'm gonna do that last, but surprisingly, they're pretty calm. All right, there's the queen right there. So they are a colony again. And then, just like anything else, I'll leave the observation hive out here for a few hours, and all the bees they'll find their way home. But 12's back together. Down here at hive number 2, obviously queen right, but it's about that time to add some queen excluders. This is one of the newer frames, and they have almost completely drawn this thing out. Absolutely great. That is exactly what I was hoping for, by adding a lot of new frames that I waxed heavily. So I'm gonna get her isolated to the bottom box, introduce a queen excluder, and let them use these top 2 boxes as honey supers. If you can't tell, this colony is packed. So what I'm actually gonna do, I'm gonna remove the feeder, add 2 more drawn deep frames, and run them as a true 10 frame. I'm gonna put these frames in the center, and then move a few frames around. So there's frames of wall-to-wall brood I'm going to put on the outside and give the queen a lot of space in the center. So let's get her released, add a queen excluder, and just check on them in about a week. Number 11 continues to limp along, so they obviously have a queen. The brood pattern is actually okay, and they are slowly increasing in numbers. For whatever reason, they do not like the 1-to-1 sugar I provide. So I'll just continue to monitor. I mean, she is increasing her brood pattern. And I've experienced this before with another hive a few seasons ago. They were just very slow going, and then that queen just kicked it into overdrive. So I'll just keep an eye on them and see what happens. All right, down here at 19, I actually split them last week due to how big they were, and the parent queen is down the line and became hive number 4. So what I'm really looking for is to see if they made any queen cells in the last week, and depending where they are will determine if I add a queen excluder or not. But check out what they've been up to. They are packing away some sugar. Sugar. Nectar. So yeah, looking for emergency cells. Hopefully they're in the process of making another queen, and then I may or may not add a queen excluder. All right, frame number 4 in the top box. That queen cell should be done developing in the next few days. And we have another one on the very next frame. So they are doing exactly what I was hoping they're doing, and they're making their next queen. So maybe by mid-April she will be hatched and start it to lay. One last thing on this one before I put them back together. This is one of those new frames I waxed. Check this out. In a matter of 2 weeks, give or take, they're drawing the wax out very nicely and already starting to pack some nectar away into it. All right, just like the last colony that has 2 mediums and is doing very well, very strong. I'm gonna remove the feeder from this one, from number 14, and add 2 more frames of, well, this is about half drawn. At least that one's fully drawn. And give the queen a ton of space down in the bottom box. Always something interesting. I did not mark the top bar. I'm gonna check my notes from last week, but I don't think I had anything notated about a developing queen cell. That is very interesting. They still have a queen, so I'm not too sure what's going on here, but I am going to cage her, slide her over into the marking tool, and clip a wing in an effort to prevent swarming. All right, ended up clipping the left wing. That's actually something I'm gonna try and be consistent with. Let's get her out, and there she goes. All right, down here at number 6, this was the split that I made from number 7, and luckily to do so, because this was the colony, or the hive, that I caught right in the middle of conducting a practice swarm. So they're actually using some of the sugar water I provided. That's really just to give them a boost. So this should be a pretty quick check. I'm just making sure they still have a queen, and then just a quick look to see how her brood's looking, if I can even determine that. And that'll be it. I did move a few frames of brood down here from the colony they were trying to swarm from. So we'll see. A lot of developing larvae, which is always good to see. I have no doubt, considering how strong number 7 is or was, I have no doubt that this colony is going to take off real quick as well. Just give them a few weeks probably. All right, frame number 5. Always something. I'm pretty sure they're still queen right. They have a ton of eggs. And before I forget, I'm just gonna mark the top bar with an arrow right above where the queen cell is. And if I can find the queen, well, just like the previous hives, that creates a decision point. So I can make another split. Yeah, sure enough, there she is. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna cage her for now. I'm gonna cage her for now and leave her caged. And then finish up the hives and come back and make a decision whether to split this one, move the parent, and let that queen cell completely develop. Well, it is developed. Let it hatch. So I'm pretty sure, judging by the age of that queen cell or the maturity, they are probably going to swarm pretty soon. So this gives me an opportunity to make another split, but I want to check the rest of the hives first. All right, down here at 17. Obviously they are queen right. She's up in the top box on a food frame. Not too much business doing anything here, but we'll get her caged. I'll go through the rest of the box, really just checking for developing queen cells. Get her isolated into the bottom box, add a queen excluder, and call it a day. All right, let's get her released. I just finished clipping her left wing, so trying something new this year. By doing that, hopefully that is a way to control swarms, as far as swarms in trees. All right, down here at 13, my notes from the 30th, so just a few days ago, Sunday actually. I said I suspect they're queenless. Silver frames a capped brood, but those are the frames I brought over from another colony. I marked them with a green paint marker with a slash. They had at least 2 queen cells, is what I said. I marked the top of those frames with a green arrow pointing to the side where the cell is on. So that was just a few days ago. Let's get into them today and see if anything's changed. And I said 13, right? So let's pop the top here in a second. Hive tracks. I'm really coming to like it for that very reason. It seems to keep me a little more organized. All right, down here at number 4, this is a split I made from 19. So the parent queen was moved down here, and that happened on, I think, the Sunday, the 30th. So I'm just gonna go through them like a normal hive inspection, of course, checking for queen cells just in case. Take a look at some of these new frames, see how much they've drawn out in the last week, and that should really be it for this one. All right, as I'm finishing things up, I did not find the queen. However, the very center frame in the bottom box here, a lot of nice brood. So I might give it a few days, come back and check, but for now they're queen right. They're building up. I just didn't find her this time. Down here at number 5, my notes from last week says I found a piping queen. And the interesting thing is they still have quite a few queen cells. One on that one, a few on the next frame, right? So I'm interested as I go through this colony if I can find that same queen and determine loosely, right, if look at all these, if she has possibly made it, or if I find eggs, right? So I'm not going to tear these down just yet because I could use these probably in another colony that's queenless. So I'm just going to have to make it a point to go through the entire box, come back, and then make a decision. All right, down here at 15 in my notes from March 30th, so on Sunday, I split this hive to make number 8. The left 4 frames containing all had brood for the hive to make queen cells. I use a lot of voice to text and sometimes it doesn't really come through, but point being, I guess, I left enough brood for them to make some queen cells. So let's see if they did that in the last week. Alright, well, if you can't tell, this hive is a little feisty, but on a good note, they have a developing queen cell right there. So I'm just gonna mark it. So they have at least one. So far, so good. And this is the very next frame, so they are on the road to recovery. This is good to see. I went ahead and added a queen excluder on this one because all the queen cells are in the bottom box. There's none in the top. The top's looking pretty nice for food stores. As you can see, this is what a queenless hive acts like sometimes. You can usually tell because they're very aggressive, very agitated. But here in another week or two, that should completely change once one of those queens hatch, mate, return, and then start dissipating her pheromone. All right, down here at number 3, I split them last week to make hive number 10, so we should find some queen cells this week. 3rd frame in the top box. It looks like a newly developed queen cell, so, oh, actually, we got some over here too. So just things to keep an eye on. And about the 3rd week of April, I'm anticipating for them to be queen right. So it's going to take another maybe 2 weeks or so, but they should be okay. There we go. That's a nice developing pair. All right, about to get into number 7. They were one of the colonies that swarmed last week. I was able to capture the queen, made a split. That one became number 6, I believe. So for this week, just like any of the other colonies that swarmed or I split last week, I'm really checking to see if they have developed some queen cells in the last few days. And if they have, fantastic. I'll just check on them like the rest of the colonies on a weekly basis. And in a matter of 1 to 2 weeks, they should have an emerged queen and a laying queen by probably the 3rd week of April. All right, over here on the 6th frame in the 2nd medium, so the medium right on top of the deep, and this one has 3 developed or developing queen cells, so they are on the road to becoming queen right. And then same thing with the very next frame. Thanks to this being a shallow frame, it gives the bees a little bit of extra space to develop some queen cells, and hopefully this comes up. But that's a pretty cool look. Oh no, you can see the larva in there. All right, down here at number 9. According to my notes, this is the colony that swarmed last week and the one that I spent about 5 hours on Saturday trying to get out of a pine tree. So with that said, this hive became number 12. So I should find some sort of developing queen cell in one of these boxes this week. All right, very cool to see. This is the 3rd mature frame I brought up from the original medium box a few weeks ago at this point, but it looks like they have chosen a few cells to potentially become their next queen. That's exactly what I wanted to find. All right, considering what I found in the medium boxes, which was a few queen cells, I am not going to try to mess with anything because that looks like a few queen cells as well. So I'm confident they are on the road to becoming queen rate. I just need to check back in about maybe a week or two. Down here at number 10, this was a split that I made from number 3. Moving number 3's parent queen down here. So let's see how they've been doing in the last week. See if they've been building up their food stores. And if things are looking halfway decent, they could be a good candidate for a queen excluder. All right, I was just thinking, it's been a while since I found a queen, but I'm gonna get her caged and clip her wing. All right, there we go. I just have a few more frames to go through. I'm just checking for queen cells, but considering I split them last week, it'd be pretty unlikely to find a queen cell at this point. All right, that's another queen with a clipped left wing, so I guess we'll just find out over time if that's a good method. Come on, go down in there. There you go. All right, down here at number 8, last hive. I do have one I need to circle back to, but number 8, this is 15 basically. I made a split off 15 last week to include 15's top medium box, so I'm really just checking regular hive inspection stuff that they're still queen right, and if she's down in the bottom box, I might introduce a queen excluder. All right, to be expected. That is the darkest queen I've ever seen in my hives. So same thing, cager, go through the rest of the frames, which really isn't many. Just checking for queen cells. Tear them down really at this point because I don't need them, but it doesn't look like there are any. So that's good. Yeah, so I'm just gonna trim her left wing, get everything put back together, and that's pretty much it. All right, that's that for this one. Got her left wing clipped and trying to get her back in the back in the box. All right, this is where things get fun and interesting. So I'm finishing up. I'm down here at number 6 since they are queen rate. I caged her, but I also found a very mature queen cell. So like I said earlier, maybe that's a decision point, right? So number 6 was a split that I made from hive number 7 on March 29th. And here we are, what is that? I don't even know, maybe a week later, April 4th, and they've developed a queen cell. So I'm going to move the parent queen and a frame or two of brood down the line into a 5-frame nuke, fill the void in number 6, and just let that queen cell hatch in the next week or so, and hopefully everything works out, right? So let's finish up for the day by doing that. All right, here goes number 6's queen, which was, I don't even remember at this point, another hive's queen just a week ago. So let's get her released. I did clip her wing, so that should help with not chasing bees and trees in the near future. As soon as she gets out, I do have a 5-frame shallow box to add that has some nice drawn out comb, so that should instantly give them some nice space to work. All right, everyone, that does it for me. I don't even remember what time I started, but I do know this. It is almost 5 o'clock. So as you can see, sometimes it just takes a while to go through all the colonies, especially when you're trying to determine certain things, whether they're queen rate, where the queen is, so you can add a queen excluder, so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna make this a very short summary. I'm not gonna roll through all the hives because honestly, I probably can't even remember right now. But point being, it is early April and the yard is very much alive. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I'm just gonna make a first half and second half for each month. So this one will be early April. So stay tuned for just anything that occurs during the week and then next weekend. And yeah, we'll just kind of see how the season goes. tulip poppers are about to start blooming, so the bees are about to start bringing in a ton of nectar, which is why I wanted to get out here and add a few queen excluders. And honestly, the queen excluders that I added, those hives are extremely strong. And I might get out here in the next few days. Well, that's not true. I'll get out here next week with the intent of getting excluders added to the rest of the colonies as soon as a few become queen right with some of those queen cells hatching. All right, folks, here it is, Tuesday, April 8th, about 3:45. Temperature is 69 degrees. Humidity is right in the mid 40% range. And I am proud to announce I have finally caught my first swarm. I did not get this on GoPro yesterday. I captured a few short videos, posted to Instagram stories, and then shared a short on YouTube of all the activity on the swarm traps. But sure enough, the yellow swarm trap yesterday had some pretty nice activity. In fact, 5 of the 6 traps did. So I'm gonna give them the rest of the week to settle in. I'm gonna get into them Friday afternoon or Saturday morning. So a few days to really settle in and hopefully draw out some comb on 4 of the frames that have new comb. I just have 1 frame with established comb in my trap. Over here to the purple trap, there's still bees checking this out. So since I didn't capture any of this on the GoPro for the first half of April's video, I'm just gonna walk around real quick, take a look at all the traps, and show y'all if it has, or if they have, just as much activity as the other day. So hopefully, right? So the purple traps on the one corner of the yard, coming over here to the red trap. This is on the other corner within the fence. And it looked like it had some bees on it a few minutes ago. So kind of, yeah, there's a few up there. Not really checking out the trap just now, but, oh, I stand corrected. There is one. All right, I'm gonna make my way to the corner of the property. I think that's the green trap, and then definitely put on the hat and veil to make my way out close to the bee yard, because as some of the hives have been going through the requeening process over the last week or so, they have definitely become a little more feisty than usual, and they will let you know by stinging you, which I got stung in one of my legs about 4 or 5 times yesterday afternoon because I was walking through the yard like a dummy in shorts, but I had my hat and veil on. So I'm gonna go grab that as I make my way out to the yard to check those 2 traps. So stay tuned and let's see how the rest are looking. All right, we got a little activity over here on the green trap, if that's coming up at all. So just kind of keep an eye on them over the next few weeks. So the interesting thing is, I hung my traps early this year in anticipation of an early swarm season, and in comparison to the past few years, it's actually a rather late swarm season by the better part of 3 weeks. So in the years past, I'll hang the traps right around March 1st, and then I'm catching swarms right around March 15th. In anticipation of an early season, I hung the traps, I think about mid-February, and then here we are, the first week of April, finally catching swarms. So I guess you never know. It's better to be early than late, but it doesn't matter because finally caught a swarm. I was going through some self-doubt whether or not the swarm traps are just all of a sudden become ineffective, or maybe something with using the lemongrass oil, maybe a different lot or a different batch or a different recipe or something, but I guess I can put all those feelings aside because we have bees in a box, and that is awesome. I'm going to try and be relatively quick because all of the recent times I've come out to the yard, the bees have greeted me in a very unpleasant way. But since I'm out here, let's take a look at the entrances, and this is just fantastic. Maybe with some of the rain we received last night and the cooler temperatures, it looks like a lot of the hives have really come alive. And this is just great to see. So that swarm will be moving into 18. That's an empty box. I may have said that in previous videos. But okay. So we still have some activity on the blue trap. And then if we come over here to the white trap, yeah, there's still some interest. So I think it's safe to say the bees have become more interested in the traps over the last week. And whether they're mine or somebody else's, obviously that's TBD. But one of the local keepers that lives in the neighborhood across the street from me, he had a very interesting idea, and I've never thought of this over the years. His idea, considering we live very close to each other, was to mark our queens with the current year's color for the ones that pertains to, but even last year's color, I guess it doesn't matter, but to take a separate color and mark right inside the dot, right inside their thorax with 2 colors. And his idea, which I thought was pretty clever, was that would be a very easy way for us to identify if we have caught one another's bees. So I'm gonna try and keep that in mind for the next time I'm in the hives marking queens, since I have last year's color green and this year, which is a Carolina blue, to mark the queens with one or the other, either a green dot with a light blue dot in the center or a blue dot with a light green dot in the center. And yeah, like I was saying, I thought that was a pretty cool, pretty innovative idea in order to determine, again, since we live so close to each other, if we're catching each other's swarms. All right, well, hey, that does it for April 8th. Just a quick walk through the yard and look at the swarm traps, and then to show you the very first swarm that I've caught this year. All right, here we go again. So it is Wednesday, April 9th, just after 4 p.m. Temperature is 63 degrees. The humidity is 47%. And in case you think I'm coming out here to give you an update on the swarm that moved into the yellow trap, you are partially correct. That is the sign of a swarm in a trap. However, there's more to the story. So Jen sent me a video right around 3 p.m., which is also when that swarm moved into that trap. But she sent me a video at 3 p.m. today, and 3 p.m. seems to be our swarm time here. So I am just trying to find where this other swarm is at. I think I can hear it. Give me a few minutes, let me figure this out. But as soon as I find it, I'll show y'all. And from the video, if nothing's changed over the last hour, they landed on some kind of tree branch. So stay tuned. All right, well, I found them. They were actually right by where I was standing, and I heard a little buzzing, but I don't think I really heard as much because I was talking. So we are right here by the mixing barrel. I've caught a swarm in this pine tree, and they are right over here. And I understand that is staring into the sun. But if I can move a little closer, yeah, this is going to be semi-challenging, but we'll figure it out here in a second. Before I get busy with trying to get swarm, I guess number 4 out of the tree, let's walk out to the bee yard, see if anything else is going on, show you the entrances, of course. And as y'all saw in the previous clips, I have started to clip the queen's wings. A few thoughts come to mind. Either I am not doing as good of a job as I think I'm doing, meaning the queens can still fly if they're ending up in trees, or perhaps that is a queen that I did not find this past week, or they're just not my bees. So let's take a look at all the entrances. Pretty darn nice activity. Like the previous clip, since I'm out here, let's check the activity of the other 2 swarm traps, which nothing really going on. Okay, so I am going to try and form a plan to get them out of this tree. I may or may not use the slingshot because unfortunately they're on a pretty young pine tree. The branches are pretty thin, so I'm not sure if that's going to work or not, but I may or may not try using the slingshot today. I may just resort to the normal method of dragging a ladder over there, and they definitely are within reach, comfortable reach of the bucket and everything. So again, stay tuned and I will share as much as I can with trying to get, I guess I'll call it swarm number 4, right? Try to get swarm number 4 out of this pine tree and into some equipment. All right, it took a little bit because it's about 4:30 or so now. So they've been in the tree for 90 minutes. If you can't see that or not, they have condensed to the one location, so that's a good thing. I am going to use a Pro Nuke with 5 frames, and one of those frames, I robbed this one from hive number 10, which is a recent swarm, or I'm sorry, a recent split, and this hive contains a lot of open brood and capped brood. So I'm gonna lift this up, try to entice those bees into the bucket, and then put that frame and the bees into the Pro Nuke. Wish me luck. Okay, that's fine. All right, quick update. I've managed to get most of the colony out of the tree via the bucket and a frame of open brood. And I am trying my hand at this thing for the first time. Not using the slingshot, but just throwing it up there. And I managed to get it after a few attempts over one of the branches I was aiming for. A decent amount of the colony is in the Pro Nuke. I did not see the queen. I was also looking for a marked queen, so I'm gonna continue to work on the rest of them. Maybe she's still up there, maybe not, but got about an hour of daylight left to figure this out. All right, I decided to get into the box and see if I can find the queen. And right before I started recording, I heard her piping. So I'm pretty confident she's in here. It's just a matter of finding her. And if she's piping, there's also a very good chance she is unmarked. But look at the bees, if that's, hopefully that's focusing. Look at them sticking up their rears to spread and fan one of the many pheromones. Oh, there she is. Perfect. Let's see, right here. Got her. All right. So now I know I can knock the rest of the bees out of the tree without having any sort of worry. The queen is still in the tree. Pretty cool. All right, let's get swarm number 6, which is becoming hive number 18. Let's get them moved over into the 10 frame equipment, which, as y'all probably know at this point, it's 8 frame due to the feeder. And thanks to some bees not using their food recently, I actually have some food left over from this past week that is still good. So I was gonna leave them in the Pro Nuke overnight, but since it's pretty chilly now and the overnight temps are going to be just a little cooler, I figured it was probably best to move them into the traditional wooden wear, just because it's a little more insulated than the Pro Nuke. Okay, let's see, that's that. So she's still in here. Just gonna give them a few minutes to settle, and then I'm gonna get her marked And that will be the first queen I'm marking with this year's color, which is blue. So that's kind of cool. All right, there you go. First blue queen of the year. I'm just gonna give her a few minutes, let her dry, and then release her. And definitely something to check up on this weekend. All right, let's get her released. With how quick she is, I don't think she's gonna waste a lot of time hanging out in the marking tool. She just needs to head the other way. Almost there. Come on. I'll do this for some reason. All right, there she goes. Awesome. All right, here we go. So it's Thursday, April 10th, right after 5:30. Temperature is 69 degrees. Humidity is 53%. And I am actually not out here because I have another swarm to catch. Thank God. I'm actually out here because I am going to Milestones Middle School tomorrow to present some information about bees and beekeeping. And I've learned over the years that the observation hive is a big hit, especially with the young kids. I am out here to get the observation hive, load it back up, and I think I'm gonna do that again with hive number, I think it's 12 in the very first position. I'm not sure if this is gonna come up or not, but there's some very nice activity. And in fact, before I get started on the observation hive, let's take a trip over to the front so I can show you the front entrances real quick. And yeah, it is number 12. That's just an empty nuke. The bees are looking great. But let's go all the way down to the other end. Take a look at swarm number 4 that I hived into number 18. And as you can see, I installed an entrance reducer with the smallest opening just to give them some added protection, and they seem to be doing just fine. I will get into them this weekend, just like a few of them, for another weekly inspection. And as I say all that, I went through the Hive Track apps last night to form a plan for this weekend, because going through all the hives every single week, it can be semi-unnecessary, especially if the hives are looking good, no real signs of swarming. Sure, things can change week by week, but I made a relatively short list. I think it's maybe 9 hives or so that I need to go through due to last week's notes of them either being queenless, currently in the re-queening process, meaning they had some very mature queen cells in development. So considering it's been a week, hopefully some of those cells have been capped, and perhaps some queens have emerged, made it, returned, and started to lay. So those are the hives I am really interested in getting into this weekend, just to save myself some time in the yard, because I don't think it's necessary to go through all the hives every single time. And plus, things calm down just a little bit when the nectar flow starts. And right before I came out here, some fellow beekeepers in the local area alluded to the nectar flow is on. Judging by their activity in their hives and looking at these bees too and what they've been packing away, I'd say they're right. So I think we are in a nectar flow finally, which is a great thing. All right, enough me yapping. I'll share a few clips moving number 12 back into the observation hive for those reasons, and that'll be it for today. All right, found the queen on the very third frame. I'm actually going to release her back onto the frame that I found her, considering that's where she was just laying. And they actually have decent brood, a lot of eggs, and they still have some space though, so that's the thought behind that. And now I can move kind of quickly through the rest of the box to find 5 frames for the bottom box of the observation. All right, just a few things, excuse me, a few things to consider. So considering how healthy the hive looks and the amount of home they built out between the inner cover, the outer cover, and on top of a few frames top bars. I think they're strong enough to add a medium box, and if I'm not mistaken, some, not many, but some of this medium box, yeah, has some drawn comb. It'll give them a start, and if the flow's on, they may make more progress than I currently realize, which is a good thing. So hopefully they prove me wrong. I just wanted to share this with you. So even though I took 6 frames, 5 for the bottom of the observation hive and the one up top where the queen was on, this is just the amount of bees that managed to come on the outside of the hive due to me disrupting their daily activities. And I'm sure they have a decent amount of foragers out there. So point is, I mean, they're not a weak hive, and I'm only going to have the bees out in the observation hive for just less than 24 hours, maybe 20 hours or so. So I'll be presenting tomorrow from 9 till 12, and then anticipate being back here by 1, and I'll have the bees back into the box, into the hive, no later than 3 o'clock is my goal. So that's it. Moving bees into the observation hive isn't terribly difficult. I have mixed feelings sometimes because I really don't want to interrupt what they're doing, especially when the nectar flow is on. But this is also that time of year where schools reach out to me for pollinator week, maybe bee week, and something else, and it's for the kids, so they get a huge kick out of this thing because the observation part, so each side has a window, the bottom has a window, and they seem to get a pretty good kick out of this. And I play a game with them called Find the Queen, if you can believe that or not, and they like it, so I guess that's what matters, right?